Hey, welcome to Bollox Talks and Tangents. We're here tonight, 6:34. We're in our studio, the Bollox studio, of course. I have a very special co-host tonight. Derek has scheduling issues, and we are trying on a new co-host for size. We have Lenny, who is our Long Island expert, the Long Island legend, Long Beach legend. All right, and you brought your flag,
city flag.
So you got your city flag with you, so you're prepared to go. But I want to say thank you guys for joining in. If you would hit that share button, we got a great show ahead. Some really fun topics. But the first thing we got to do, Lenny, we got to thank our sponsors because they're the reason we get to stay on the air.
Absolutely.
So we're going to start with City Gates Distillery and St. Augustine Distillery. These two guys, they do an amazing job. They're owned by the same company. They've won Best Tour in St. Augustine, and they've won Best Tour for a distillery. And not only that, they have amazing liquors at City Gates. They do a lot of unique and different things there. And at the St. Augustine Distillery, their bourbon, which is what our whiskey of the week is, and we're drinking the Saint from the St. Augustine Distillery. So it's a good, and you're a bourbon guy.
I'm a bourbon fan, and I'm particularly fond of their bourbon.
Yeah.
You know? They're playing around with some fun stuff between barrel aging in different flavored casks. It's just good whiskey.
Yeah.
It's good whiskey.
And Derek was more of a beer guy. I mean, not that we're opposed to beer, but,
Right.
you know, I think you and I are more on the bourbon side.
I am.
All right. We have a brand new sponsor we got to talk about today, Chesire Collision and Customs. If you have a little ding or you need something, a new paint job, or you want some work done on your car, these guys, you can trust them. They give back to the community. They're always there. Chesire Collision and Customs. Check them out, and we appreciate them coming on board. All right, these guys are the guys that keep me out of jail. Abare, Kresge and Associates. These are my accountants. They're just the best in
I
town.
thought they were your bail bondsmen.
No,
Okay.
I don't need a bail bondsman right now.
Yeah.
That might be our next sponsor, but I got Abare, Kresge and Associates. If I'm going to get in trouble, it's going to be with one of my businesses. So, and they really know how to knock it out of the park. All right, part of our sponsor row. All right, because we have a sponsor row. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah.
All right, we have Meehan's Irish Pub.
My favorite.
Have you ever been there?
My favorite restaurant in St. Augustine. The staff is outstanding. The food is consistent.
Yeah.
There's meatless things for my wife to eat. There's oysters for everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, love that place.
Reg is they have 3 bars in one. So you got the oyster bar upstairs, Johnny's Oyster Bar. You got the pub inside, and then you got the backyard.
That's where my wife and I spend Christmas Eve every year. We go up to the oyster bar, get a bottle of wine or a bottle of champagne, a couple dozen oysters, and then usually a mac and cheese just to round it out.
Blake, he's a mac and cheese guy there.
Confirm.
What was that, Blake?
Yeah, yes, I am.
That's his go-to. That's his go-to there. But I mean, just great people, great staff. I mean, and a menu that's I think is the best bar menu in town.
Right.
All right. Have you had the curry?
No.
Oh, the
No.
curry's great. I think I've said great too many times.
Yeah, well,
Maybe.
it earned it.
It earned it. They do. They work hard. All right. Also on our sponsor row, St. Augustine Pirate Museum. They have over 800 original artifacts in that tiny little. You look at it and you go, "Oh, that's not much." When you get in there, it just looks like it's Alice in Wonderland. It just kind of gets bigger, and every time you open a drawer, you know, you can go as many times as you want. You're not going to see everything. So, Cindy, the entire staff over there does an amazing job. You know, so happy they're one of our partners, and they're always in the community doing the right thing.
And I'll be honest, I've been remiss. In the 8 years we've been in St. Augustine, we keep waiting for our nieces and nephews to come to town who are now graduating college, so we haven't gotten there yet. Julie and I just declared that we don't care who the next visitor to town is. We're taking them whether they've been there or not, because we have been remiss, and I feel bad about that because it's very exciting. I hear they have an authentic Jolly Roger.
They do. They do, and they have some of the stuff that you're just going to go, wow. You're the. I mean, the reason I wanted you to come on and co-host is you're the kind of guy that like has that brain that just keeps you going down the rabbit hole, keeps you going down the tangent. So, but check them out, Cindy and the entire crew over there. They do an amazing job. If you're there, ask for Captain Mayhem if he's there to do a private tour. Definitely worth that. All right. One of the newest, and I would say one of the best restaurants in town, but definitely the best view, and that's River and Fort. River and Fort, and I don't know if you guys know where it's located, because, Blake, you know where it's at?
I believe it's next to the river and yet a couple feet away from the fort.
Yeah, that's exactly where it's at. It's near the river and the fort.
Right.
And but their rooftop up there, there's not a better place to have a drink.
It's the best 360 view in St. Augustine. You can see everything. And they make a heck of a Negroni up there. I mean, I'm a bourbon drinker, but from time to time, man does not live by bourbon alone. And a Negroni is a good cocktail, and they do it well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely the best view from a restaurant. Mm-hmm. I got a better view. Right, Blake?
Can confirm. I also think there's a rocket launch happening Sunday night, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I am partial to the porch at Meehan's, and I've seen rocket launches from there, coincidentally, when I was doing my ghost tour days. But where?
The rooftop of the Treasury.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Nobody's invited me up there yet. So.
The most scariest staircase.
And the staircase. Blake's not a fan of the staircase.
Is that into the turret?
It doesn't go into. We step out before the turret.
Okay.
There's a ladder that goes to the turret. Only I'm allowed up there.
Right.
That's a hornet infest.
Ooh,
All right, our final, but definitely not our least, Palm Valley Golf Course. It's a 9-hole golf course, executive course. If you're learning golf, it's the best place to learn golf. If you want to get in and out quickly, it's the best place for that. It's the most cost effective, and it has the best driving range, I believe, in St. Johns County. And they're just starting the new Tracer program, so they have 15 bays where it's a virtual golf that you actually hit out into the driving range, so you can play multiple courses all over the country through that. So check them out and support our sponsors. We appreciate you guys so much. All right. Now I got to formally introduce. Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, I had to inform you that you messed up one of the sponsor names. It's actually Chesire's Customs and Collisions.
I asked you and you switched it.
I thought
you made me switch it. Don't say I messed it up. Lenny, you witnessed that, right?
I was here.
You will witness that. So now he's throwing me under the bus. I had it written down, Customs and Collisions. And so Chesire, either way, they're going to do an amazing job. So is it Customs and Collisions?
I think it's... Wait, hold on. Okay, the logo just popped up. It's actually Collisions and Customs.
Okay, well, see now, take it back.
I take it back.
All right, there you go.
At the end of it, your car will look like it was new after whatever happened to bring it to them in the first place.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm sure someone was irresponsible for the reason why you're there. Right. All right. This is the part, and Lenny, I gotta say welcome, and I appreciate you stepping up. Kind of had a scheduling thing with my co-host Derek, and when I asked you, you're like, yeah, I'll try it out. So I really appreciate you coming in. But Lenny, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, I know you're from New York.
Yep.
You used to do the ghost tours.
Ghost tours in St. Augustine. Born and raised in Long Beach, New York. Spent the majority of my life there. When my parents passed away, my wife and I decided to be closer to her parents. We moved to Florida. Came to St. Augustine on spec. Had never been here.
Okay.
Spent about 6 months looking around for places, and then everything fell into place. Like a game of dominoes, all in our favor. Found a property, found a builder, found a house to rent. While the house is being built, we love it. We are in St. Augustine Beach. Couldn't be better. Mm-hmm. Live the same distance from the ocean as we did in Long Beach, which was 0.3 of a mile. We're a 6-minute walk to the ocean on 7th Street, and it's wonderful.
It's a beautiful thing.
Love the community, love our neighbors.
Winters are probably a little better here.
A lot better. That was another reason. As I was getting old, I was getting too old to shovel snow. Just wasn't worth it. And, in all honesty, the taxes, the property taxes in Florida, and certainly in St. Augustine Beach compared to New York, I'm just a happy boy.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to start off with word origins. We use, and I told you, we each are going to do 2 of those. I'm going to start us off because what we're doing is just a drop in the bucket.
Okay.
All right. So a drop in the bucket, you actually would think, okay, it's just a little drop, or think it's like a raindrop or something like that. But it comes from Bible.
Oh.
Isaiah 40:15. Behold, the nations are a drop of a bucket, and are counted as a small dust of balance. Behold, he taketh up the isles as a very little thing. So it actually comes from the Bible, a drop in the bucket. And in my mind, I thought it was like from a leaky roof
Okay.
into a
Eliza.
bucket. I had no idea, and I can tell you how I got there because Easter is this weekend.
Yeah.
I was like, phrases that you might not know associated with the Bible. So that's kind of where I Googled. That's the tangent I went down.
Okay.
And the drop in the bucket was one that popped up. And I was like, how is that associated? But it comes from Isaiah 40:15.
It's a good week for it.
You ever use the term drop in a bucket?
Not frequently, but I'm familiar with it.
Okay. All right. So what's your? I'm going to let you do your two, and then I'll do
Okay.
do my last one.
Well, I'll do the one that I debunked because you and I had spoken just colloquially about the fact being Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
And when I did my ghost tours, you would talk about the bell ringer and the graveyard shift and Saved by the Bell, and that all evolved from the colloquialism of burying somebody. And there's actually a security or a safety coffin that was developed in 1829 for people to be buried with a rope tied to their head, their feet, and their hands, and it went up to a bell that was in a housing so it wouldn't go off accidentally with wind or birds or anything of that nature. And if somebody was alive or they were twitching, the bell would ring, and the night watchman in the graveyard would say, well, wait a second, we have a problem here. Mm-hmm. And that's where the graveyard shift came from, Saved by the Bell. Mm-hmm. However, that's not where Saved by the Bell came from.
It's not at all.
No, at all. It came from boxing. Literally, Saved by the Bell. The round was over. If the guy was getting rubber-legged or a little goofy, the bell would ring and he would be saved by the bell.
No, that completely makes sense. But I always associated, and I'm a sports guy, and I know the term in boxing as being saved by the bell. Yeah. But I thought the other one predated that. But the boxing one predated.
The boxing one is where every place I looked, because I was going to do Saved by the Bell for the graveyards, and it turns out it's all boxing. There was one guy who was saved by the bell 32 times, and he wasn't the least bit dead. He was just a very bad boxer.
Yeah.
So that happened there. So that was that. But in 1829, a gentleman built a security coffin with all that stuff in it. But the interesting thing is, George Washington was so afraid of being buried alive. George Washington had a theory, and this is Easter week, so I apologize to anybody, but this is George Washington, not me, who thought that he was questioning the resurrection, so take it out on George, not me.
Well, in George's defense, George was a Unitarian.
Okay.
His wife was a Christian, but he was a Unitarian. He went to church only because she said, "You're going to church."
Good job, Martha.
So he was a Unitarian, like he believed there was one being, but it wasn't like what we think of Christianity. And a lot of our founding fathers were Unitarians. Right. And they're like, because it was written this way, it was written that way, that they, the Christian right try and claim all the founding fathers. But that's not necessarily the way history reads it either.
Well, so. he was, his premise was Jesus was buried alive, and his resurrection was just him waking up and going, hang on a second. Now, I don't necessarily know that I agree with that or concur with that, but we'll go into Easter with the premise that on the third day he rose. But George Washington was so frightened by this that he demanded that he not be buried for 2 days after he passed away to make sure that he was still dead. So that was our boy George.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the reason they hold wakes.
Yeah,
is because a lot of people would go into comas. Especially people didn't understand diabetes and blood sugars and stuff like that. And sometimes they would go into comas and then they wake up like 3-4 days later. And the pulse was so low that, there was viewings and wakes and all those things came to be because of situations like that where they were actually in a coma. And that's why it's called a wake.
Right.
Give you time to wake. So.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
My second one.
What's your second one there?
My second one is going to broker into one of my generals, and it's sideburns. And sideburns came from the hair that was grown by Ambrose Burnside. He was a Civil War general, among other things. He was we'll talk about him in a little while, but his sideburns grew down and connected his, what some people may call mutton chops, to his mustache, but he had no hair on his chin. He shaved his chin and beneath it, and it was a very bizarre a very bizarre growth of hair that came across this way and over here and covered his mouth and tied his mustache into his mutton chops, into his hair on his head.
I think you should do that next week.
You should do it, Dad.
You're gonna have to take that up with the wife. She does not like me clean shaven.
No,
You should do it.
I think. What you want me? No, I'm not doing it.
Yes, there you
Remember
go.
what happened last time I shaved?
So his name was Burnside, and somewhere the juxtaposition of the two syllables changed to sideburns, and that's how we have sideburns today.
Blake, did you put a picture up?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. So there it is,
That's
right
him.
there.
That's the man.
That's him right there.
Yep. That's old Ambrose.
All right. He's got a deep part in his hair too.
Yeah, well, we can take care of that with some of the fads later when we get to those.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. My other one is by the skin of my teeth.
Ah.
Okay. Again, another Christian statement.
Yeah. Is that,
Okay.
is that biblical?
It is
I
biblical.
thought that one might be, yeah.
All right. It's from the book of Job.
Ah.
So the book of Job, it's when God saves Job from Satan. Okay, so God is saving Job from Satan.
Thank you.
My bone cliveth to my skin and to my flesh, and I am escaped with the skin of my teeth. And that is where it is a near escape, and it started with the Bible term. So escaping by the skin of your teeth came from Job.
Okay.
Never knew that. I'm not a huge religious guy, obviously, but
Well, that's why we get along so well.
yeah. So that's kind of the two that I have. All right, and we're gonna jump right into fads.
Okay, lead on.
And guess what my fad's about? Teeth.
Well, talk about a tangent.
Teeth.
Go ahead.
So
I got some.
this was one of the strangest fads that I found. All right, in today's society, teeth is something people associate with attraction.
Okay.
All right. In the 1400s, in England, in a lot of Europe, if you had rotten teeth, you were considered attractive. The reason being is the peasants ate fruits, vegetables, and were never allowed to have any sweets or candies or anything along those lines. They couldn't afford it. So if you had rotten teeth, that usually meant you were wealthy because you were eating sweeter foods and rotten foods. I didn't realize this until I was looking up the different fads, and I was like, all right. And there are even fads out there with teeth where they will do their entire teeth black, that are basically in certain societies it says that woman is married.
Okay.
Or they'll do the
Off the market?
entire teeth red and say that woman's available.
On the market. Okay.
So, I mean, I and I usually make fun of the English for their teeth anyway, but I don't
Well, I
think
was gonna say, yeah.
I don't think they've gotten out of this fad yet.
Right.
So it could be.
So there's some very, happy, rich people in England with very bad teeth.
Very, very, very wealthy people
Yeah.
that can afford dental now, and they still got bad teeth. So I'm wondering if that stems from this fad from 800 years ago.
Well, it's possible, or just poor dental work. Though, actually, in looking up something else from last night, the National Health Service of England is one of the larger employers in the world.
Okay.
Apparently not a lot of dentists.
Now, I guess they don't consider dental as part of it.
Right, not a lot of dentists.
Yeah. So, because I mean, if you even look back in the 60s and 70s at some of the look, Blake just threw that picture up there. Those guys are very fashionable. So, but if you look at the 60s and 70s of where we were at, even in dentistry, in athletes' interviews or rock stars or stuff like that, like you don't see people with jacked up teeth anymore. But 60s, 70s, it was pretty common. So teeth.
Okay.
Teeth is a fad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
From the olden days.
Yeah.
All right.
So what you got?
I came a lot more contemporary with mine. I'm going to start with Psy. Psy. Gangnam Style.
Oh.
That was a fad for a brief period of time. Everybody was doing the Gangnam Style.
Blake did it.
There you go.
Don't bring it up.
But-
Don't bring it up.
It's very interesting because he did that in 2012 But there's a bizarre backstory with Cy. Cy came to the United States, went to school, was sent over here to go to school, went to Boston University. Yeah, didn't like it, dropped out. Decided he wanted to pursue music because he was always into music, production and performance. So he went to Berkeley, and he dropped out. But he went back to Korea and made a bunch of albums. He was a rapper, he was a producer, he was a performer. He had an album out in 2001, 2002, 2010. All of them were censured because they were not fit for polite conversation or people under 19, apparently.
Not in the workplace.
Right. Well, it was the Tipper Gore thing that there was a warning label on his albums, and he was in trouble for that.
Yeah.
He was an odd gentleman. He had his albums. He was topping the charts, and his albums were still being censured or labeled.
Yeah, happened to Two Live Crew.
Yeah. But
Martinez.
it was very interesting because he did the Gangnam Style thing. The Koreans called him the bizarre singer because his look was so strange. The glasses, he looked like he could be one of your accountants, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was bizarre. They called him the bizarre singer. Not only does he have all this stuff that was censored, Gangnam Style takes off. Now all of a sudden the man is an international phenomenon. He became an official ambassador for the Gangnam area in South Korea, and the United Nations made him an international sensation. The United Nations labeled him an international sensation.
Oh, we still know it.
That's our boy Cy. Absolutely. Yeah. So that was that fad right there, which I kind of found very, very interesting.
Yeah, no, I remember. Yeah. I mean, literally, Blake. That was one of the songs. Blake. We would go to Magic games, and he loved it when they played that.
Yeah.
So I can't remember how to do it. All right.
It's a lot of horse slapping, I think. Yeah.
I think you do a lot of that.
Yeah.
All right. So my second fad sprung out like World War II.
Okay.
And my hero was my grandfather. All right. Blake, can you pull up Kilroy was here?
I know it well. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So during World War II, the military, and there's a lot of great words that came out of World War II. FUBAR.
Oh, yeah.
Snafu.
Beyond all recognition.
Yes. Yeah. You know snafu, too.
Probably. Oh, yeah.
Situation normal, all
FUBAR.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah. So, but Kilroy, there he is right there.
Was he?
All right. Kilroy was here. All right. So they're trying to figure out who and where Kilroy came from.
Okay.
All right. And it was a common military graffiti. My grandfather was in the Pacific, and he said, "Yeah, I would leave it all over. Like he left it all over Japan and wherever he was at, the Philippines and wherever he was at." And it was a pretty common thing for most of the people that were there. And Kilroy would appear all over Germany, all over France, all over every place.
That I knew in Europe, sure.
All right, but they tried to do a study of exactly where it came from. And it came from a guy by the name of James J. Kilroy. He worked in a shipyard, and the people would kept coming through inspecting his tanks and stuff like that. So he would draw Kilroy on it like it was them looking over like where he was working on them. And it was like, okay, this one's already been inspected. So, and that's where it sprang out of is the Kilroy. But when it happened, it instantly went through all the troops. So in World War II, Kilroy was all over Europe and all over the South Pacific.
Went viral before there was anything that was viral, actually.
Yeah. No. It was like one guy drew it, and they're like, oh, that's cool. I'll do that too. Yeah. And that was kind of like the U.S. military's graffiti. It was their mark of like, yeah, we're here. We got you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So.
And it was a real Kilroy. That's the best part.
Yeah. It was a real guy.
And he was not there, as a matter of fact.
No, he was
not there.
He was putting tanks together and stuff.
Right. Which was important as well.
Yeah, no. Super important.
Absolutely.
But that fad, and I was interested in that because my grandfather talked about Kilroy a lot.
Really?
Yeah. He talked about like he'd leave Kilroy here and leave Kilroy there.
Oh, so your grandfather was a graffiti artist is what you're saying.
I don't think he was a great drawer.
Well,
so
it was a simple one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do have some art from him at the house, but yeah.
Nice. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah. So, but both Blake and I are named after my grandfather, Sam. Yeah.
There you go. Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
All right. What you got?
Well, I got a lot, but we could do the pet rock, but you know, it's just you gotta
Did
not
you have one?
You gotta not walk it. You gotta not feed it. Yeah, I think I went to the yard and got my own. As a matter of fact,
I think they still have pet rocks. They just leave them randomly all over, and there's a message on the back of them now, and there's a whole like rock society.
You know, they were a phenomenon in 1975. They sold over 1 million of them at $4 a piece. Made the guy who invented it very, very, very wealthy. And there was a resurgence in 2012, as a matter of fact.
Really?
For a very brief period of time, apparently. But as I was doing that, you know, I got enamored with As Seen on TV. But when you want to say
Ronco.
You got it, exactly. Ron Popeil, my friend.
Yeah.
We've got the Chop-O-Matic that his father invented that morphed into the Veg-O-Matic. The Pocket Fisherman.
Pocket Fisherman. My grandfather had one of those.
A lot of them. There were over 2 million sold. That came out in 1963. Mr. Microphone.
Oh.
These guys were geniuses.
Hey, sweetheart, we'll be back to pick you up later. Could not show that commercial today.
Yeah. It turned your FM radio into a speaker.
Like, what it was, and this was a microphone you could play through your radio in your car. All right? And the commercial actually has a guy making a cat call to a woman on the street. And that was the commercial. Now he'd probably get thrown in jail in the woke world.
There you go.
Yeah. Ronco.
The inside, the egg scrambler. It was a bent pin that you could put into your eggshell, push the button, and it would spin around, and it would scramble your eggs in the shell. So if you wanted a hard-boiled egg, it was a yolkless hard-boiled egg because it was all mixed in there. Or you would crack it open, and you didn't have to, I don't know, use a fork or a whisk.
It's so
or all that.
hard.
Yeah, exactly, you know. Put the whisk people out of business. I don't think so. But this is very...
So is Ron, in your opinion, this is a question.
Sure.
Is Ronco or Acme more like our current day Amazon? Because just think of this. Wile E. Coyote would get stuff within a day from Acme. So it's between those two of which one Bezos should think the most.
I'm thinking the Ronco stuff worked a little bit better than everything that poor Wiley got delivered to him because he kept getting blown up. Meep.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's just two more on the Ronco thing. One was the GLH. Great looking hair.
Oh.
Spray in your bald spots with the color that matches you. And they sold a bunch of that. It was $9.95 for the can of hairspray, but if you wanted to go big bucks, $20, you could get the hairspray, the shampoo, and the fixer that would keep it there. Apparently, when Rudy Giuliani had his, you should pardon the meltdown, he didn't have the fixer.
Well, I mean, did they also do the Floby thing that connected to your
cut your hair with the vacuum?
Vacuum.
Yeah, no, that
wasn't Ronco.
I don't believe that was them.
Okay.
But the last one, which people are still talking about, because I mentioned it at work today when I was at work at Kaiser's Deli today.
Yeah.
I mentioned something, and Kaiser said, "Set it and forget it." I had one of those, and that was the Showtime grill, the Showtime electric rotisserie grill. 3 models: a standard, a bigger one, and the Pro. And the standard one was $100. The Pro was the compact was $100. The standard was $150, and the Pro was $219.
That's a lot of money.
Back then, in particular, yeah.
I'll keep my air fryer.
He sold 7 million of them.
Yeah, and they're still selling them today.
They are.
Yeah.
And the tagline, you tell somebody, set it and forget it, and they know exactly what you're talking about. And that was our boy, Ron Popeil. Man, he was the late night king of the infomercial. Yeah. Fabulous stuff. Fabulous stuff.
All right. So I have a couple. One of them actually turned into currency.
Oh.
So the fad I want to talk about, and I talked a little bit about it with Derek probably a couple months ago, but we didn't really get into it. All right. Tulips were introduced in Holland in 1593. Holland is cold and not colorful with plants at all. So the tulips were a big deal. All right. They were such a big deal that they started trading just like Bitcoin today. They started trading tulip bulbs as currency. So, and that went on for over 50 years in Holland. Tulips. So,
yeah. And a lot of lowlanders lost their shirts on that.
Oh yeah, no.
That market crashed. Did it?
Yeah,
not?
It was 10 times the annual income of a skilled craftsman to do the currency of tulips. And what I'm saying right now, and this is where I'm cautioning people, and the bank in California got their ass kicked about it. Be careful of this Bitcoin stuff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So, tulips. Bitcoin should be in our fads, by the way.
Well, let's hope so sooner than later.
Another one that kind of stuck out to me, and we talked a little bit about the 70s, and mine's the 70s because I wanted to associate a fad that I was associated with.
Okay.
And that's roller skating rinks.
You bring it up. Couple skates.
Yeah.
It's your favorite music.
Couple skate only.
There you
couple
go.
skate. All right. And it actually, in this article, the couple skate person I think about when I hear, oh, it's a couple skate, is Olivia Newton-John.
Okay.
That's exactly who they said in this article. It says, whether it was holding hands with your crush as a slow skate to Olivia Newton-John ballad or getting funky, because disco goes along with the roller skating.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Central Park, boombox on your shoulder and doing acrobatics on those skates that I can't even begin to think of.
Goes along with it. And I can tell you, every Saturday night, I'd have my overalls on, one up, one down, and I was rocking it all 4'8" of me, and I was just crushing it at the skating rink.
You were styling. Styling.
My girlfriends were always taller than me because I grew late, so it was like a couple skate was like this, but I could skate backwards, so I was cool.
Very good.
That's
a talent.
But skating rinks are gone.
And what rink was that?
Dayton Skate.
Okay.
At Nolan.
That was the name of the place, Dayton Skate?
Dayton Skate was the name of it.
Well, they made no bones about it.
No.
Okay.
No, yeah, you went in the corner and made out, and yeah.
Ooh. Risque.
Yeah, that's how we rolled. That's how Deland rolls.
That's how you rolled. Well, because you're on skates. It's a good thing.
We do
otherwise, you'd be walking.
Yeah, no. You do they would have limbo contests, and I mean, just, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you'd take your shoes or your skates off at like 11 o'clock, and then it would become a disco.
See, that I could handle.
Yeah.
Maybe not the disco itself, but I'd be better on dry land than on roller skates. That's all I'm saying.
You're not a skater.
Not a skater, not an ice skater. Yeah, I mean, when I learned how to ice skate, there were two blades on the bottom of my feet. Mm-hmm. You know, the little ones, and and the hot chocolate was the powdered stuff that was really just lightly brown.
Yeah, it's brown water.
Hot water, yeah, very hot water.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm not from the skaters. I tried.
Yeah.
I took ice skating in gym when I went to college. We had a physical education requirement, and I'm up at Cornell in Ithaca, and big hockey program, big upstate, a lot of skaters. Mm-hmm. I'm working on skating backwards, and I'm getting literally spun around by guys whipping past me. I was able to slightly skate backwards, and I said, "Thank you very much. Pass the class. I'll graduate."
You're like, I'm out. Yeah, like I'm out.
Yeah,
like tap.
Yep,
I'm out.
Yep.
All right, what's your next fad? What you got?
Well, my next fad is, believe it or not, the Segway.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. Segway was kind of interesting.
It was supposed to be like ADA and all these,
They're done. They're still kicking around, but they stopped making them.
Yeah, there's still Segway tours here.
Yeah, but they stopped making them in 2020.
Okay.
Started in 2021 by a guy by the name of Dean Kamen, was the inventor.
So it started when?
2001.
Oh, 2001. Okay, you said 2021. I was like,
I did.
How did it start before it ended?
Well,
that would make
travel.
It's fascinating.
Is it Back to the Future? Calvin Klein? Okay.
Thank you very much. Melvin, you got to see this guy. Call your brother Chuck. 2001, guy invents the Segway. Ends up selling the prospects, or the owner of the company is a guy by the name of Jimmy Heiselden.
Okay.
He ended Segway in a big hurry.
Mm.
Guy was on his Segway, which was, by the way, at this point in time, there were a couple of different models, and he was on an all-terrain Segway, and he all-terrained himself right over a cliff into a river and died. And all of a sudden, the popularity of Segways kind of winnowed out just a little bit, unless you're a mall cop or in the movie Mall Cop, where you can still see
Paul
Segways
Blart.
today. That's right.
Yeah, unless you're Paul Blart. No, and I can tell you this. I've never been on a Segway.
There's still a lot of tours of them.
I've never been on one.
I have. I've seen them. They do. Washington, D.C. does a lot of Segway tours.
We used to do them
in St. Augustine.
We have them here in town. Yeah, they're still around.
Yeah,
they're still around.
Much of them, though.
At the corner of King Street and Riberia.
Yeah.
So they're still there. Yeah. All right. We got lots of other ones. I mean, and some of the ones that I passed up on were waterbeds.
Yep, had one in college.
Had one in college.
Called the lake. It was big.
I feel like you would be the guy that would have a waterbed in a van.
No. This was on semi-dry land in my fraternity house. Yep,
okay.
absolutely.
You had a waterbed in your fraternity house.
Yes.
Okay, that's creepy and another different story altogether.
Oh, we'll talk later off the air. Yeah.
All right. The other one that I decided not to do was dance marathons, which used to be huge in the 1920s, and you could win a car if you won. And there was actually a death because somebody dehydrated, and after 86 hours of being awake, they died. So it kind of faded off with that. But the one I want to talk about that we still have in our house is a lava lamp.
Ah, had one of those all growing up. Very much fun.
Yeah, so we still have a lava lamp in our house. And matter of fact, our cat broke our lava lamp, and we had to get a new one.
Bad cat.
Yeah. So I like a good lava lamp.
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up and that you still have that, and they've cycled back through. Because in doing my research, I found that apparently fads tend to either repeat themselves or trends repeat themselves about every 20 years. Mm-hmm. So, it's to be expected.
So in another 20 years, I might be cool?
You're cool now, Troy. Yeah. Don't sell yourself short. You're cool now.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. All right. I'll give you props for that, brother.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. And here for this good bourbon we're drinking, we're going to tap it out right now. And we're going to talk about our sponsors. You got any more fads that you really want to talk about? That you want to throw out there?
I got Ronco. I got the mood ring. Well, I was going to do.
I had the mood ring too.
Yeah, but
did you have a mood ring?
I did, and you could cheat them. Uh-huh. You could change. You can change. You heat them, cool them. You could make it do what you wanted to do if you were smart.
Okay.
The only other thing was all those fitness things as seen on TV. God bless Suzanne Summer and her and her
Thigh Master,
Thigh Master, and the Butt Master.
Yeah,
which is basically the same thing. One you put inside your legs, one you put outside your legs, and it was kind of wacky. But you had the Thigh Master. You had all sorts of things.
Well, and what was the belt that went around you that shook?
The vibrating one.
Yeah.
Which was exorbitantly expensive. Mm-hmm. And then they also, that's
a Jack LaLanne type thing is what I pictured that as.
That was the Health and Beauty Belt Massager for $209.
Woo!
You could get for $159 one of the ones that you would see in the old-time TV shows. There was the stand that had the belt that you would stand there.
Yeah.
You get that for a lot less than the vibrating belt massager.
Yeah.
Apparently none of them worked very well.
Just eat a salad and go for a walk.
Pretty much.
All right, here we go. We got to talk about our sponsors, our amazing sponsors. Palm Valley Golf Course, best golf course. If you want to learn how to play, by far, to me, the best driving range. It's wide open. You can hit it. And you're not on top of each other. A lot of driving ranges, when you get out there, you feel like you're right on top of it. You're like, okay, can I swing? Can I not swing? Out there, you can spread out. They got plenty of room. River and Fort, I'm telling you right now, great food, great bar, several bars within one, and the best view in town.
I think their ground floor bar is one of the best places to do some people watching because you can look right out. You get a view of the fort. You get the ships in the bay, and everybody's walking past you. That ground floor bar there is a wonderful, wonderful place.
Yep.
I mean, I'm still kind of partial to the roof and the 360 view, but if I have a Negroni downstairs, I'm as happy as if I have a Negroni upstairs.
It tastes the same.
It does. They make them very well.
All right, St. Augustine Pirate Museum. St. Augustine Pirate Museum, they have over 800 artifacts. So happy the Croce family decided to move this museum up from Key West to here.
Okay.
They were down in Key West. They didn't have the best location down there. They were off. Pat came here, fell in love with St. Augustine, and brought his museum here. So happy that moment took place. All right, another thing, just went to the anniversary just a couple weeks ago. Meehan's Irish Pub. Great food.
Best bar and restaurant in St. Augustine.
I'm a Jameson guy. I like a Jameson as good as the next guy. Great food, great drinks, great people.
Absolutely. Yeah. The people make the place, both the clientele and the staff there.
Yeah. And you work with Kaiser at Kaiser's Deli.
That's where I met him. Absolutely.
Kaiser was a bartender there for like 12 years or something like that.
Bar manager, ran the bars there.
And now he has an amazing deli. I had a Reuben there this week. Oh, so good.
You want a good sandwich, that's the place to go.
It's Kaiser's so good, Deli
so
on
fresh.
White
Street, absolutely.
Yep.
But I will tell you, Meehan's, I started going there when I was doing my ghost tours. So if you do go to Meehan's and something goes bump in the night, you're probably not imagining it. That's all I'm going to say on that subject right there.
So it used to be somebody's attic. I'll think of it.
Okay.
It was something attic. I can't think of what it was. And maybe somebody in the comments will remember what the name of the Meehan's was before it was there. All right. Abare, Kresge and Associates, the best thing out there, the best CPAs out there. Don't think oh, I don't want to spend the extra money on a CPA. You will lose money by not spending money on a CPA. Went down and saw those guys. They took care of Blake's taxes. They started on mine. They did my parents' taxes. These guys I trust. To me, they're just the best in town. I have 7 or 8 businesses, and they got to juggle all of those to make it happen, and I appreciate them.
Busy time of year for them, by the way.
Yeah, super busy time of the year. All right, Chesire Collision and Customs. Blake, did I say that correctly?
Yes, you did.
He's checking.
All right. Chesire Collision and Customs, our newest sponsor. They're located off of homes out there, have a great paint booth. Like if you want to get your car painted, there's nowhere in town that has the technology that these guys have. They actually paint your car and then they put it in the oven and they bake your car. So I mean, that's some cool stuff.
So do we know, is their logo just a smile?
Huh?
Is their logo just a smile for Cheshire?
No, it's not a cat.
Okay.
It's not a cat.
Okay.
It's actually his last name.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
It's actually his last name.
All right.
So that's Chris's last name. All right. City Gates Distillery and St. Augustine Distillery. These guys, they know how to make whiskey.
It's good bourbon.
They know how to make bourbon. They, are a part of our community, sitting right there on Sponsor Row with the City Gate. Stop in there. They do samples. Check it out. You can get whatever you want in there. I think you'll find it amazing.
Yeah. Tours,
all right.
Tasting in the gift shop. That when you finish the tour, it's great stuff.
All right. Now it's time to move into generals. We have about 20 minutes to get on the generals, and I think you have a lot of stuff on generals.
I do.
But I'm going to start us off.
Go.
I'm going to start us off because the last sponsor we talked about was whiskey
Yep.
and bourbons.
Okay.
All right. A guy who gets a bad rap about being an alcoholic and being a drunk, yet he was one of our greatest generals of all time.
You picking on our president?
Ulysses S. Grant.
There you go.
He saved our country twice. So Ulysses S. Grant, but his first name was not Ulysses.
No.
His first name was Hiram. He was such a bad student at West Point. He was such a bad student at West Point that he was afraid to correct them when they wrote down Ulysses Simpson Grant. Now, Simpson didn't come out of nowhere. It was his mom's maiden name.
Okay.
So most people know him as Ulysses S. Grant, but his actual name was Hiram Ulysses Grant. So, such a unique guy. And Blake, you got a picture of?
Yeah,
right
you
there?
already pulled it up while you were looking down.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
Hey, just to stop you for 1 second. Who's buried in Grant's tomb?
Yes. And it's with Washington's White Horse.
Exactly.
But some cool stories that are around Grant and how he handled certain things in his life. His wife actually their family owned slaves. Okay, have you heard this story before?
No, I'm just trying to remember if her name was Julia.
Hold on. I had it and I can't. Let me find it real quick.
It may not be, but
Yeah,
for some reason that's sticking in my brain.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things that stick
But
in my brain that aren't right.
It is Julia Dent.
Okay.
Yeah, Julia Dent. Very good. Good job.
Thank
Good
you.
job, sir.
Thank you.
All right, but when they got married, her family gifted a slave to Ulysses S. Grant. Now, this was at a time before the Civil War. Mm-hmm. He was struggling as far as money goes. He was out of the military at this point, and he was struggling like at a print shop or something like that. And that slave probably would have been worth a year's salary. As soon as they got married, he walked down and signed freedom for that man. He didn't sell him. He didn't do any of those things. He gave him freedom even though he was flat broke. So that says the character of this guy. Now, he got the story of being a drunk from his time out west where he was so lonely and he battled with depression. And he got in a little bit of trouble with drinking with the military. But he literally was battling with depression. But when it came time, and it's unique that I picked him. of all our presidents, he's the one that's supposed to have the lowest IQ. And that's what I was saying. He was such a weak student
Right.
at
West Point.
Yeah. But he was such a on the field strategist. Like he could react. He was a counterpuncher,
Right.
and he could react. And he was a man of good character.
Well, obviously, you just brought that out for sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, and, when it came to kind of bringing the country back together after the war, and Johnson, who was in between Lincoln and him, did a horrible job of that.
Shakes it all there.
Yeah. And John, he did a horrible job. But to me, Grant, I mean, and I love Eisenhower, but I didn't do Eisenhower. To me, Grant is my general. That was my go-to general. Washington had some good things, and he was very impressive. But the three
and knew when to step out.
Yeah, exactly. And the three generals, U.S. generals that I decided to go with, the three that came to mind were Eisenhower, Washington, and Grant. And I decided to go with Grant because I think he's underrated for what he did for our country.
Absolutely. We could be in a whole different situation if it was not for what he did.
Yeah. So, all right, who you got? Who's your first one?
Well, if we're going to go that way, because I really do want to get to the rabbit hole I went down, and I mean a literal rabbit hole.
Okay.
But I'll come back to that in 1 second, and it's going to be interesting because I can tie it back in. I was going to do Ambrose Burnside, but to tie it in properly, I can do Joseph Hooker.
Okay.
Now, we're going to do word origins. I was going to do the word origin of Hooker, which has absolutely less to do with Hooker than we would have thought.
Okay.
So we're going to leave him out of that for the time being. And you're talking about bad students. Both Ambrose Burnside and Joseph Hooker also went to West Point.
Yes.
Not shining stars.
Yeah.
Burnside was 18 out of 47 in his class, and Hooker was 29 out of 50 in his class. And they succeeded each other.
I think Grant was 48 out of 49.
He was the bottom of the class. Absolutely.
Yeah.
He made these guys look sharp. Yeah.
And Robert E. Lee was number one.
Right. And Lee and Grant, I think, were classmates, were they not?
No.
I thought they were in the same class.
Lee was older.
Okay.
Yeah, Lee was older.
Distinguished gray beard like us.
Lee was older.
Yeah.
Actually, Grant looked up to Lee.
Yeah.
So the Mexican War that they served, and Grant looked up to Lee because Lee could have went either way.
Right.
And he stayed with the state of Virginia.
Right.
So
right.
and
he left the U.S. Army to go there. Yeah.
He was pretty much offered U.S. side too.
Yeah. Which also could have changed things, but history is
might
history.
Have saved a lot of lives.
Yeah. Well,
and I have one of those. I have one of those stories too. Okay. So,
but Burnside was the General of the Potomac, and this guy was to call him a sad sack is probably fairly accurate. Unfortunately, guy was horribly unlucky. Horribly unlucky in battle and in business. Yet he was still a 3-term governor of Rhode Island, single-year terms at the time, and then he was a U.S. senator. But he became the general of the Army of the Potomac when he was asked 3 times. And he said, no, I'm really not good at this. I really don't want to do this. No, thank you very much, Mr. Lincoln. I appreciate the offer, but, no. They asked him again. He said, no. 3rd time they asked him, the messenger who brought him the message said, look, here's the deal. This is your last chance to take this job, and if you don't want it, they're giving it to Joseph Hooker. And Ambrose said, I'm taking it. He did not like Hooker at all, and he said, I'm taking that job to keep him out of it. Great. Wife goes on. He loses he has a couple of early successes, and then he gets pummeled, unfortunately pummeled. And who do they give the Army of the Potomac to?
Hooker.
And he don't last too long either because he goes up against Lee in Fredericksburg, I believe, and he gets squonked, where Lee has one of the most brilliant decisions ever. He takes his outgunned army. I mean, the Union was 2-1, 100,000 to 60,000 soldiers, and Lee was outnumbered, but he was certainly not outmaneuvered at this time, and he splits his forces, comes around from 2 sides, and he crushes the Union. And, it was a big thing. And that was the end of our buddy Joseph Hooker. But it was very interesting because in the Civil War days, these guys were sniping and backstabbing like it was nobody's business.
All right, and you took me right to my next general.
Who is?
Sherman, or not Sherman. It is Stonewall Jackson.
There you go.
All right.
Other side. We're going to the other side.
Yeah. So the strategy that Lee had, he relied on this general, Stonewall Jackson, Thomas I think it's Thomas. Hold on now. Jonathan Jackson. All right. And Stonewall Jackson, Lee basically said he's the most brilliant field general he's ever seen. And to this day, only one person scored higher on the aptitude test at West Point than General Lee. Okay, so all the people,
it was Jackson.
It wasn't Jackson. Okay. Jackson
I didn't know
finished.
He went to West Point.
Jackson, he did go to West Point. Jackson graduated 17th, but he did it in 3 years. And all his schoolmates said if he'd have stayed for 4, he would have been number 1 without a doubt. So, but Jackson.
I'm also not putting up a picture of Stonewall Jackson for fears of Facebook hell.
Yeah, no, I understand. I get you. But the thing about Jackson is he was actually killed by friendly fire.
Right.
And it was one of the first times they did ballistics to find out where the caliber of the bullet that killed him. And they cut off his arm. Mm-hmm. So they removed it. They cut off his arm, and then they said he died of pneumonia 8 days later.
Right.
But that was at Fredericksburg.
Right. Correct.
All right. The person who did the strategy for Fredericksburg with Lee
was Stonewall.
Yes. Right. So no real major battles after that were really won by the Confederacy after Stonewall died.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but he got that moniker by being in battle and staying there in the fuselage of bullets, and his troops said, that man is standing there like a stone wall. Yeah. And I believe that's where that nickname came from.
It came from the First Battle of Bull Run. And I'm trying to think of the general that actually gave him that name. But basically it was, I think it was Elliot B. And he compared him to a stone wall, which is where the nickname, he basically said, this guy's not going anywhere. And he taught at Virginia Military Institute. And he's like, those boys from Virginia, look at Jackson. He's standing there like a stone wall. Yep. And after that, he would never had that nickname until the Battle of Bull Run. So he only had the nickname for 3 years. So.
Well, it was short-lived, but it lived on. But it lived on well after him. Yeah, absolutely, because everybody knows Stonewall Jackson.
Yes, without a doubt.
Right.
All right, what you got?
Okay. Well, this is going to tie in a little bit to this, and this is something a dear friend of mine just turned me on to this afternoon, believe it or not. And we can call an emperor a general. Napoleon was a general at one point.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. Without
Absolutely.
A doubt. No.
Well, so, Napoleon beats the Russians and the Prussians, and he signed the Treaty of Tilsit. Mm-hmm. The Treaty of Tilsit, it's 1807. Mm-hmm. War's over, they sign the treaty, he gets the Prussians to sign it, he gets the Russians to sign it, he signs it, and there's going to be a big celebration. Now, this is very Easter related because they decide to celebrate that by having a rabbit hunt. Mm. Okay?
All right.
So his chief of staff, a gentleman by the name of Alexandre Berthier, goes to the farms around there, and they collect a ton of rabbits. Some people say 300, some people say 3,000, but there was a plethora, a big quantity of rabbit. We're talking more than a hutch. Mm-hmm. And they bring them in, and they cage them, and they put them around this field, where then they're going to go out and celebrate and go on a rabbit hunt. Mm-hmm. Great. No problem. So, ready to start the hunt, they open the cages, the rabbits come out, and instead of scurrying away from the people with the beaters that were going to chase them off, rabbits all turn around, and they run right at Napoleon. And there's a lot of source material on this that says this is absolutely what happened. And the rabbits go running toward Napoleon. And people are going, oh, this is adorable. Look at the cute little bunny rabbits coming to Napoleon. And all of a sudden, they keep coming, and they keep coming, and they keep coming, and they keep coming. And a couple of them get to Napoleon, and they start, climbing on his legs. A couple of them get on his coat. At this point in time, Napoleon freaks out. Mm-hmm. And he starts heading back to his carriage. So the rabbits, which may be where Robert E. Lee got this strategy, believe it or not, the rabbits split into two phalanx. They split in half, and they come at the carriage and Napoleon from both sides. They surround the carriage. A couple of rabbits get in the carriage. Napoleon finally gets away, throwing rabbits out of the carriage as he's going away.
It's like tribbles.
Exactly, and we know the trouble with tribbles.
Yeah.
They realize after the fact that instead of collecting wild rabbits, they got domesticated or tamed rabbits from all the farmers. The rabbits get fed by humans. They open their cage. They hadn't been fed all day or a day and a half, and they bring them out, and they see Napoleon. Daddy got food.
Yeah,
and they go
so they
run
went
at Napoleon.
right there. Yeah.
So they went to get fed by him, and he's going, I got nothing for you, and he has to go hide in his carriage. Poor Napoleon lost the battle to a bunch of rabbits after he beat the Russians.
Yeah.
And I think that's just wonderful and very Easter-oriented as we speak about bunny rabbits.
Bunnies got him.
Yeah.
So, but Napoleon was also a brilliant strategist and tactician. So.
Absolutely.
All right. And the last one I have, and we only got like 3 minutes, is another guy that could have changed the world, but he died in the middle of the war. Okay? In my opinion, during World War II, this guy and what he was able to pull off with what he had available to him is probably one of the best tactician generals I know in history, and he's from Germany.
Oh.
And that's Erwin Rommel.
The Desert Fox.
The Desert Fox. And I didn't really, until I started getting down the rabbit hole, I was like, okay, how did he die? How did he come to his demise? And here this guy is a great warrior and all this stuff. Do you know how he died?
I do not.
All right, I didn't realize this either until today, because I knew of his battles and what he did in the early part of the war, and I knew he died during the middle of the war. Well, Rommel started realizing where Hitler was taking Germany.
Yeah.
And he was involved in a coup to actually assassinate Hitler. Found out about it. Hitler knew what a hero Rommel was, and Hitler threatened Rommel, either you can take the cyanide and commit suicide and keep your name intact, or we're going to torture your entire family. And Rommel took the cyanide, and that's how Rommel, one of the greatest field generals of all time, committed suicide at the hands of Hitler. I had no idea that existed until I read about this.
Didn't know that at all.
I mean, because here's a guy, like, we think of Patton being one of our great generals, and he was a great general, but he got his ass handed to him by Rommel in the desert.
By the Africa Corps.
Yeah.
That's Africa with a K, which is always fun.
Yeah. So, but that's how Rommel saw his end.
Did not know that at all.
And what happens if Rommel lives? How much longer does World War II go if Rommel lives? How much longer does the Civil War go if Jackson lived? You know, in the middle, the two that lost their best generals in the middle of those wars. So if they just think of the lives that were saved by these two men finding their demise.
You know, and it's interesting that there were people that were cognizant of what was going on at the time, that as high up as they were in the Third Reich and the German military, realized that Hitler was the problem at this point in time and tried to take him out, unfortunately unsuccessful. Yeah. Because that also could have, ended the war. That could have ended it. That could have ended a lot of other ways. Yep. What a shame. Yeah. So too bad. All right, Erwin, rest in peace.
Yeah. Erwin, but that's how I thought he died in battle or something else. Think, right? I had he took a cyanide pill.
Yeah, a lot of those generals don't die of old age.
In front of the entire military there.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a statement.
Because they wanted to make sure it was him, and it was done.
And that also must have cowed any other resistance at that time. I would think that it was the proverbial double-edged sword.
It was an example in that war room is where they did it. So, all right, guess what? That's the end of our show. Lenny,
we're over?
Yeah, that's it, man. I'm telling you, it goes quick.
Where did the time go?
It goes so quickly. So I want to ask you guys, if you're out there, please hit that share button. Hit that share button when you get home, Lenny. Go back and check some of those comments. Thank you to all our sponsors. Support our sponsors. This is Bollox Talks and Tangents, and we'll be right back next week at 6:34.
Thanks, Troy.